In this lecture, I will give a brief introduction about Kali Linux. So Kali Linux is an advanced penetration testing Linux distribution used for penetration testing, ethical hacking, and network security assessments. And penetration testing is the practice of safely testing a computer system, network, or web application to find vulnerabilities that an attacker could exploit. And black hat hackers use the same tools in Kali Linux, but we, as the pen testers or white hat hackers, will use them safely and with authorization from the organization we conduct testing for. So knowing how to use these tools included in Kali Linux will be very useful for us as security analysts. The terms ethical hacking and penetration testing are often used interchangeably. But ethical hacking, on the other hand, is a more general term that includes all hacking methods and other related cyber attack methods. So it requires wider knowledge and more work than pen testing, which is more focused on a specific area of interest. So the main goal here is to identify vulnerabilities, implement countermeasures, and test if that worked. And since these skills of pen testing and ethical hacking are for red team security professionals, while the CCNA CyberOps certification is a blue team security certification that focuses on security analysis and incident response rather than pen testing, then we will not take a deep look into Kali Linux and its tools. However, knowing the basics and the main ideas is very useful for you as a security analyst, so that you can understand attacks in production and simulate them in your labs. And we have hundreds of tools in Kali Linux that are organized into categories. Information gathering, where we have tools such as Multigo, Nmap, and Zenmap. Vulnerability analysis, and here we have tools such as Nikto and again Nmap. Password attacks using John the Ripper, Offcrack, and other tools. Wireless attacks, which include tools such as AirCrack-NG. Exploitation tools such as Armitage, Metasploit, and SQLmap. And we have web application analysis, database assessment, and other categories. And in the next lecture, we will explore how to work with two tools that are very useful and very popular, Metasploit and Nmap. So in this lecture, I have given a brief introduction about Kali Linux. In this lecture, I will explain how to download and install Kali Linux. So, in the link shown here, we can select the version of Kali Linux that we want to download. And here we see different versions, including the light one, which is smaller in size and contains fewer tools than the full version. So it is suitable if you have slow internet connection, and after that you can download packages on demand. So it is a customized version that is based on your needs. And we can also go to this link shown here and then download the OVA or Open Virtual Appliance or VirtualBox, and then import it into VirtualBox so that we will not download the ISO image, configure the VM, or install the OS. But in this course, I have chosen to use the first method of all these steps. So I have already downloaded the full image. So here in VirtualBox, I will start configuring the Kali Linux VM. So I will click on New and then type the name of the machine, which is Kali Linux, and here we see that the type and the version was detected automatically. So I will click on next, and then I will set the RAM to be 2 GB, and if you used 1 gig of RAM, then that will be okay also. So I will click now on next, and then I will create a new virtual hard disk, and I will select the hard disk to be VMDK, and then I will click on next, and I will leave the type of the disk to be dynamically allocated, and the recommended size of the hard disk is 20 gigabytes, but I will configure that to be 30 gigabytes, and then I will click on create. And now I will configure other settings. So I will go to network and set the network adapter mode to be bridge adapter, and then the promiscuous mode to be allow all, and also the storage I will insert the Kali Linux ISO image into the optical drive. So I will click here and then select this image that I have downloaded, and then I will click on OK. Now I will start the machine in order to begin the installation process. So I will select the install option, and I will select the language to be English and the country to be United States, and here I will select American English. And now we have to configure the network, so I will configure the host name to be Kali Linux, and I will configure the domain name later. Now I have to set the root password, and then I have to confirm this password, and I will set the time zone to be Eastern. Then for the hard disk I will select the guided use entire hard disk, and here I will hit on enter. Set all the files to be in one partition, and then I will finish partitioning. Now I will select yes. So now we see that the system is being installed. So here we see that we are being asked if we want to use network mirror. So I will select no here, and now we see that the group bootloader is being installed. Now I will click on yes to confirm the installing of the group bootloader, and here I will select the installation location for the group bootloader, and here we see that the installation is complete. So I will click on continue to finish the installation. So here we have to enter the username, which is root, and then the password of the root account. I will click on sign in, and here we see the desktop of Kali Linux. So in this lecture we have installed Kali Linux successfully, and in the next lecture we will start exploring it. In this lecture we will start exploring Kali Linux, but let us first run the machine in the skilled mode. And the first thing I want to show you that you can configure settings for the root. For example, you can log out or configure account setting for this account, and also you can go to settings to configure the settings for the system. And here we have the favorites bar that contains the most popular tools which can be customized, and we can access all of the tools by clicking here. So here we can find all the applications of Kali Linux, and we can go to the application and browse the categories. So here we have the information gathering category, and here the vulnerability analysis, and so on. And we can also browse for subcategories. So under the information gathering category, we have DNS analysis, IPS identification, and other subcategories. And under the vulnerability analysis, we have Cisco tools, fuzzing tools, and other subcategories also. And let us now explore some tools. So for example, MultiGo is used to gather publicly available information about a specific domain from data sources such as DNS records, whois records, search engines, online social networks, and visualize that information in a graph format. It can view relations between people, emails, groups, web pages, domains, networks, and internet infrastructure. And Nikto is an open source web server scanner which performs comprehensive tests against web servers for potentially dangerous files and programs, outdated versions, version-specific problems, server configuration issues, and will attempt to identify installed servers and software. And we have AirCrackNG, which is a complete suite of tools to assess Wi-Fi network security through packet capturing, conducting attacks, testing capabilities, and cracking Wi-Fi passwords. We can also use Scabby, which is a powerful interactive packet manipulation Python-based program. It is able to fork or decode packets of a wide number of protocols, send them on the wire, capture them, match requests and replies, and much more. So for example, you can use it for IP address spoofing, manipulating TCP flags, and traffic sniffing. So in this lecture, we have explored Kali Linux and some of its tools. And in the next lecture, we will download and install the Metasploitable VM. In this lecture, I will explain about how to download, install, configure, and explore the Metasploitable VM. So, in the links shown here, we can use one of these links to download the Metasploitable 2 VM and then import it into VirtualBox. And this VM is built from the ground up with a large amount of security vulnerabilities. It is intended to be used as a target for testing exploits with Metasploit. So here we see that I have already downloaded the Metasploitable VM in zip format that contains the hard disk of the VM in the VMDK format, and I have already extracted this virtual hard disk into some folder on my Windows machine. So here in VirtualBox, I will create a new virtual machine with the name of Metasploitable with the type of Linux and version of Ubuntu. And then I will click on next, and I will set the RAM to be 4 GB, and then I will click on next, and I will use an existing hard disk, which is this one that I have extracted from the download. So now I will click on open and then create. Now in GNS3 I will import these machine. So I will click on new and then Metasploitable and then finish, and also I will import the Kali Linux machine. Now I will drag both two machines into the GNS3 workspace, and I will start them, and then connect them to the Ether switch. Now I will configure IP addresses for both VMs. So for the Metasploitable VM, I have to enter the credentials for the login, which is MSF admin with the same password, and then I will set the IP address for Ethernet 0 interface to be 192.168.1.3 with the net mask of /24. So here in Kali Linux I will configure an IP address. So sudo if config for the Ethernet 0 interface with the IP address of 1.4 and the net mask of /24, and then I will try to test connectivity with the Metasploitable VM, so the 1.3 IP address. So here we see that we have replies coming, so we have connectivity. So let us try and access the Mutilide web application on the Metasploitable VM. So the 1.3 IP address and then Mutilide. So here we see the Mutilide web application, which is a free, open source, intentionally vulnerable web application that we can use for web pen testing. It is developed by the OWASP, or Web Application Security Project Organization, which offers many resources to help developers secure their applications and to identify attacks. The OWASP publishes a report every 3 years that details the top 10 most widely exploited web application vulnerabilities during that period. So here we see the link for these top 10 vulnerabilities that we can use for testing in our labs. So in this lecture I have explained about how to download, install, configure and explore the Metasploitable VM. In this lecture I will give a brief introduction about Nmap and how to work with it. So Nmap is a free and open source scanner that can be used to discover or map the hosts and surfaces on a computer network to build a map of that network. To map a network, Nmap sends specially crafted packets to the target host and then analyzes the responses. These responses deduce information about the target, including operating systems and software versions, since targets can respond differently depending on their type. For example, OS fingerprinting can be done by looking at the TCP window size and time to leave in the IP header of the first packet in a TCP session. Some Microsoft Windows operating systems have TTL value and TCP window size of 128 and 8192 respectively, while Cisco routers have TTL value of 255 and TCP window size of 4128. Linux operating systems have TTL value of 64 and most of them have TCP window size of 5840. And examples of scan types that we can use with Nmap are TCP scan using the SS option, version scan using the SV option, operating system scan using the O option, target port scan using the P option. And we can use evasion techniques to evade firewalls and intrusion detection systems. So we can adjust timing, which controls the balance between the performance and accuracy, and there are 6 timing templates that can be used. T0 or paranoid, which is very slow and used for IDS evasion. T1 or sneaky, which is quite slow and used also for IDS evasion. T2 or polite, which slows down to consume less bandwidth. It runs 10 times slower than default. T3 or normal, which is the default. It uses a dynamic timing model based on target responsiveness. T4 or aggressive, which assumes a fast and reliable network and may overwhelm targets. T5 or insane, which is very aggressive and will likely overwhelm targets or miss open ports. And we have decoy using the D option, which makes it appear to the remote host that the hosts you specify as decoys are scanning the target network too, so it hides the real attacking IP among other spoofed ones. Using too many decoys may slow your scan and can make it less accurate. In addition, some ISPs might filter out your spoofed packets, but many might not do that at all. Also, there is fragmentation using the F option to evade intrusion detection systems and packet filters by splitting up the TCP header over several packets to make it harder for them to detect what you are doing. Idle or zombie scan using the SI option, which takes advantage of an idle system by employing it to scan our target. It monitors the IP IDs of the responses and determines the port status from that. Idle scan is considered to be the ultimate stealth scan. Bad checksum using the badsum option, which sends packets with invalid TCP, UDP, or SCTP checksum to find packet filters and intrusion detection systems. If the target responded, then it is likely one of those, unlike the case is with hosts that will drop those packets. And we have NSE or Nmap scripting engine, which is one of Nmap's most powerful and flexible features. It allows users to write and share simple scripts to automate a wide variety of networking tasks with speed and efficiency. It extends Nmap's functionality in 5 different ways: network discovery, more sophisticated version detection, vulnerability detection, backdoor detection, and vulnerability exploitation. When working with scripts, you can execute group of scripts using categories, Boolean expressions, or wildcards. And we have hundreds of scripts included with Nmap. And here are few examples: HTTP sitemap generator, MySQL dump hashes, HTTP SQL injection, and broadcast EIGRP discovery. So in this lecture, I have given a brief introduction about Nmap and how to work with it. And in the next lecture, we will see that in practice. In this lecture, we will start our hands-on practicing with Nmap. So I will open a terminal window and then I will try to use scan to the Metasploitable VM. So here we see the services that was enabled on the VM, and also we see that we got the MAC address, and from the MAC address we knew that it is an Oracle VirtualBox VM. Let us now try a version scan that will give us more information about the enabled services. So here we see the versions of each service that is associated with an open port. So for example, the HTTP or web server is running Apache. Let us now try to identify the operating system using the capital O option. So here we see that the operating system is Linux. Let us try to find the OS for the router. So here we see that the router is a Cisco router that runs this iOS, and we see that the only running service on the router is the telnet service. So it is unlike the Metasploitable VM that has many services running. Let us now try to run insane scan, so T5 for specific ports. So for example, the HTTP and HTTPS ports. So we see that the HTTP port or protocol is running and the HTTPS is not enabled on the VM, and we see that the scan was completed in about 13 seconds. Let us use the same scan, but this time with the sneaky timing, so T1 to evade intrusion detection systems. So we see that the scan was completed in about 58 seconds, so it is more slower than the previous one. So that is why it is used to evade intrusion detection systems, because it runs slowly. And also I will use another evasion technique, so I will try to use the decoy option. So I will spoof these IP addresses, and I will go to the router and enable debugging using the command debug IP packet detail to see the spoofed packets. Now I will execute the command. So here in the router we see packets coming from the spoofed IP addresses, so the 250 and the 200. Let us now try to use scripts. So I will use the script that is the default one that will give us more and detailed information. So here we see this information like the NetBIOS name, the work group, and many other information. Let us use another script. So the HTTP site map generator script that will give us details about the sitemap. So here we see the directory structure of the website. So we have seen that scripts give us detailed information. Let us now try to work with Nmap, which is UI for Nmap. So here we see that we can select the type of the scan, and by selecting the type we see that the syntax of the command is changed, and here we can specify the host. So let us try an intense scan without ping to the Metasploitable VM. So here we see the results of the intense scan, which uses the capital A option that is like running the default script. And here we see the services that were discovered on the machine. So in this lecture we have explored how to work with Nmap and have seen many options that can be used with it, and then we have seen how to work with Nmap, which is a GUI tool for Nmap. In this lecture I will give a brief introduction about Metasploit. So the Metasploit framework is an open source tool for developing and executing exploit code against a remote target machine. It is a sub-project of the Metasploit project, which is a computer security project that provides information about security vulnerabilities and aids in penetration testing and IDS signature development. In 2009, the framework was acquired by a company called Rapid7. The Metasploit framework is designed to be modular, so new modules can be created and integrated into the framework. When working with Metasploit, you identify systems and services using scanners, which are auxiliary modules. Then you have to take advantage of a vulnerability and allows the execution of the payload using exploit modules. Examples of these is triggering buffer overflows or bypassing authentication. After that, you have to deliver the software called a payload to the target system to provide access or to take control of it. Examples of that are starting a meterpreter session or executing some shell commands. After successful exploitation and remote connection, you can run post modules to set up keyloggers or download files, for example. And you can pivot from the exploited system to other systems. We have also encoder modules, which are programs for performing encryption. And finally, there are NOP modules, which simply does nothing and are useful for filling the void in executables. And for the commands, we have the search command that will help you to find the module you need. Then we have the use command to select that module. We also have the info command to get all the information about the selected module, including its options and their current settings. You can view these options also using the show options command. And you can configure or change the settings of these options using the set command. The most important option to set is the rhosts option that is used to specify the target system. We have many other options also depending on the module used. Examples include ports, threads, username, password, user file, password file, database, SQL, and so on. And finally, you execute the actions of the module using the run or exploit commands. And the Metasploit framework has tools with GUI, such as Hermitage and Community. So in this lecture, I have given a brief introduction about Metasploit and about how to work with it. And in the next lecture, we will see that in practice. In this lecture, we will start our hands-on practicing with Metasploit. So we can launch Metasploit by clicking here or from the terminal. So let us first conduct an nmap scan for the Metasploitable VM with the version option. So here in the results, we see that we have a PostgreSQL database on the Metasploitable VM with the TCP port of 5432 and with this version, and we can get the same results using the Metasploit framework. So I will launch now the Metasploit framework. So MSF console, we see that the framework is starting now. So let us search for the port scan modules, and here we see that we have a module for TCP port scan. So let us use that one. So use auxiliary scanner port scan TCP, and we can get info about that one using the info command, or use the show options command, and we can also use the set command to get the options that we have to set. So here we see that the ports are by default from 1 to 10,000 and the remote hosts parameter is not set, so I will set those using the set command. So set ports, let us configure that to be from 5,000 to 6,000 to include the port of the Postgre, and I will set the R hosts to be the IP address of 1.3, which is the IP address of the Metasploitable VM. Let us check for our configuration. So we see that the ports and the IP address are configured now. So now we can use the run command or the exploit command. So now we see that the port of the Postgre is open. We can also get the version of the Postgre database using the Postgre version module, and we have to set the R hosts to be the IP address of 1.3, and then we can use the exploit command or run command. So here we see that the version was found. Let us now try to find if we can log in into the database using the login module, and then set the host and then use the run command. We see that we have one successful login using these credentials. Let us now try to access the database using the auxiliary admin Postgre and then SQL module and set the remote host and the SQL statement to be, for example, select database name from the BG database and then run. Here we see that we have error because of the rhost. So if I use the set command, we see that we have to set the rhost parameter but not the rhost. So I will set that one and then run again. And here we see that we have 3 databases: the Postgres, the template 0 and template 1. And also we can use the Hermitage, which is a GUI for the Metasploit framework. So I will click here. So now I will click on connect and then yes. So now we have to specify the IP address of the computer that will be attacked, which is the 1.3 IP address, and then I will drag that one here, and then I will search in the auxiliary for the scanners, and then Postgres, and I will try to use the login module, and here we see that the parameters are configured. So I will click now on launch. So we see that we have one successful login, which is the same login that we have discovered using the command line of the Metasploit. So in this lecture we have explored how to work with the Metasploit framework using both the command line and using the GUI of the Hermitage.